Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. On today's episode, it's a midweek mini mail call, and we're going to be taking a look at a SID replacement. This is not it. It will be something that is modern and is able to replace these SIDs, which all seem to be dying, unfortunately. So, without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, we have a package here from George in Oakland, Florida, not Oakland, California. George, I apologize. I've had this package since the 3rd of March, so it's been quite a long time. Oh, and you sent me some goodies in here. So let's see what the letter says. Dear Adrian, I hope this brand new ARMSID device will be a more cost-effective alternative to genuine SID chips that are becoming more and more difficult to come by. I've never used this, but this device can apparently be configured to emulate either the 6581 SID or the later 8580. I personally prefer the sound of the earlier 6581. There's a configuration tool and he has a link to it, and I hope you enjoy the edible packing material. And yep, George has sent me a bunch of Haribo. Ooh, what's this? I've never tried these. Bala sticks, cola flavor. Okay, that's awesome. And in here, there was a little package, and this is the main thing I want to look at here. This is the ARMSID, and there it is. Oh, that is so cool. I don't have an ARMSID, and I've never used it. I've only ever used the SwinSID as a SID replacement, and I'm kind of lukewarm on the SwinSID. It's an older product. It's inexpensive. You can get them on eBay relatively cheaply, but it's not the greatest approximation of a SID. And when stuff uses simple melodies or notes, it's fine. But when it's more complicated music, like the Donkey Kong arcade intro from my 8-bit dance party, that doesn't sound really that good. So hopefully these ARMSIDs can do a better job. All right, so let's take a look at the ARMSID on the bench. So the ARMSID, let's take a look at this thing. Obviously I have the C64, which we're gonna do testing in. It all looks really tiny in there, very small surface mount components, and obviously that is the ARM processor, I guess. There's quite a lot of horsepower in an ARM chip. Well, it depends which one it is, obviously, but it hopefully can do a great approximation of the SID, a lot better than the SwinSID, which uses an ATmega 8-bit microcontroller. There are certainly going to be some websites that are comparing this particular SID replacement to all the other ones that are available, not to mention the actual SID variants that came from Commodore themselves. So this video is not going to be authoritative, especially because it's just a mail call. But what I want to do is take the C64 here. I will do a direct capture of some SID music out of this thing, and then we'll pop this in and see how that sounds. So in this machine right now is a SID that's here, and I'm pretty sure this is a 6581 AR. I think it's AR4. It's definitely one of the later SIDs. It wouldn't have been the one that came with this particular motherboard, because this motherboard's from 1983 or so. That just would have been a normal 6581. I like the way that these AR ones sound. They have a little bit deeper bass to them than the earlier ones. I mean, the SID is an analog chip, so there's going to be some variance from one chip to another, and that's just the way it is. Also, the SIDs are known to be a little bit noisy, and that's just par for the course. They were an inexpensive synthesizer chip designed for an inexpensive home computer, so things are just a little noisy because of the digital signals that run in and out of it. Let's do testing with this, which is the Chameleon 64. I showed this off briefly in the Bitcoin mining video for the 64, and I need to do a proper review of this, and I will be doing that soon. This was a donation which had some other incredible accessories that make this thing pretty amazing, and I haven't seen a lot of videos on it, so I will need to get around to that. But for now, I'm just going to use it for its SID playback capabilities because it has a built-in SID player. We'll power up the machine here. Let's take a look. There's the interesting Chameleon bootloader process. If we go to File Browser and we go to Music, we have a bunch of different SID files to listen to. So first, let's start with Donkey Kong, which is the 8-bit dance party song we're all familiar with. I'll be doing a direct capture from this machine. It's coming out of this 3.5mm jack here into my capture device. And here we go. So one thing that's interesting about this SID player, which I just forgot to mention, is even on an NTSC machine, it actually plays back at the 50 Hertz rate. It listens to the information that's contained in the SID file, the metadata, to play it back at the correct speed. It's using the 6526 to do that versus synchronizing to the video signal, which most things that play music actually do. That has the effect of playing that song what sounds slow to me, because I'm used to the 60 Hertz playback. It's actually the correct speed because that particular track was composed with PAL in mind and 50 Hertz machines. I'm going to play a few different songs with the actual SID chip, and then I'll swap to the ARMSID and do the same thing, but in editing, I'll combine those together so you can hear the song one after another. So I think it's time to turn off the machine and swap over to the ARMSID, and let's listen how it sounds. So out with the original SID, the good real thing, and in with the ARMSID. Just make sure it's firmly in there, and it is. And here we go. All right, didn't make a sound or a tone or anything, but the machine is booting, so that's a good sign. Here's Donkey Kong on the ARMSID. So I have to say, I'm really impressed with the way the ARMSID sounds. I maybe back to back could tell that there's a difference, but I can't really say that the ARMSID sounds worse than the other one. It's a little bit different. It definitely sounds cleaner, but it sounds really good. Now I think the ARMSID has a configuration utility, which I obviously haven't run. So this is in the default configuration out of the box. And I think that tool maybe allows you to change between 6581 emulation and 8580 emulation, which is the later SIDs, which are quite different internally than the earlier ones. So whatever it's set to out of the box, Donkey Kong sounds really good. Nice and clean, really tight bass. Really have no complaints at all. I'd be very happy with this as a SID replacement. So now I want to play a track called Legend Intro, and this is from SID Burner 7. Pay careful attention to the intro where there's these kind of high noises coming in and out like a hissing sound, and also there's like this loud drum beat, kind of a boom boom sound, a booming drum that really sounds different from one SID to another. And on the SwinSID I have, that sounds really terrible. All right, so that sounds good, and I've listened to that a whole bunch of times, and I'm very used to how it sounds. It's a little slow playing back with this particular player, but otherwise, the way the instrumentation sounds, it's really great. And it's an amazing sounding SID to me. It's really pushing the limits of the chip. I mean, maybe it's not, but the fact that it seems to really expose any issues with a SID chip, like if I have a bad one, then that's pretty cool. It feels like it's pushing it. Let's try Legend Intro on ARMSID. All right, so what are my thoughts there? Well, Legend Intro sounds pretty good. I'm, again, pretty impressed with ARMSID. That intro kind of wispy noise that happens definitely sounds different, but the fact is it sounds so different from one actual real SID to another. I don't know what the original intent of that sound was actually by the creator. So, you know, it's different. It sounds a bit louder on the ARMSID than it is on the ARSID at least. So I think I'm just used to it sounding a little quieter. You can hear the rest of the music a little bit better. So that's just an observation. The percussions that kind of comes in once the main part of the song starts, it sounds a little different as well. I think, again, that's the noise channel that's being used for the percussion, which is similar to that wispy sound at the beginning. So it sounds a bit different too, but it still sounds pretty good. It's just, I don't know, something about it, maybe it's just because I'm used to the AR SID, it just doesn't sound exactly right to me. But it's still really good. And again, just like the last song, compared to the SwinSID, it's a huge, huge improvement. So hats off to the team that came up with this. And actually, I just had a thought too that I wonder if the configuration utility for this particular SID has a firmware update that maybe is available for this as well to even improve the emulation even more or allow some customization. And kind of back to what I was saying as well before, perhaps there's even a profile for it to emulate the 6581 AR, which would really be a closer approximation to the SID that I'm used to listening to. Again, I haven't looked at the utility yet, so I'm not sure on that. Here's another one, Ode to C64, which I think is the intro from SID Burner 7. Okay, so I think I've listened to those 3 songs for long enough. Ode to C64, I really like the intro has this incredible modulation that is obviously altering parameters in the SID, which I think also sort of pushes it. And then it has a really good bass line as well. That also sounds quite different, even on real SID chips, when you're looking at the AR version versus the 8500 series that's in the 64Cs, along with the earlier SIDs. They just sound a bit different when it comes to that bass line, but even the modulation. And that track really exposes if there's any issues with the SID chips. If there's problems with the way the digital control can manipulate the synthesizers, you hear like glitching and stuff in the track. And I've had SID chips that sound pretty normal, but then when I play that track, you hear all sorts of glitching, which kind of gives away that there is actually a problem with the chip, but it kind of works. So I mark those as marginal. But this AR chip, obviously, it sounds just perfect, other than the little bit of noise that it's producing. And now, Ode to C64 on the ARMSID. All right, well, I am really impressed with the way that track played back on the ARMSID. It sounds really, really good. Nice, tight bass, really full sounding. And actually, I forgot to mention on the last track, the bass also sounded really good on the ARMSID. But this one, it sounded great. All that modulation sounded really, really good. I am really impressed with the ARMSID. The next track I'm going to play on the 6581 AR is Turbo Outrun, and it's digitized music. It's not normal synthesized music. I think it's something that's pretty tough for the ARMSID to play back properly, or any fake SID that is. But let's hear it on the 6581, and keep in mind, I'm pretty sure this track will play too quickly because it's on an NTSC machine. It's definitely designed for PAL, and I don't think it can compensate for that, the music player here, because of the way it's doing digital playback. So let's try it out. 1, 2, 3, hit it. Outrun. All right, well, yeah, that's playing way too fast, again, because of the NTSC thing, but it sounds good. I mean, in 1989, if I had heard that coming out of my Commodore 64, well, I didn't even have a Commodore 64 at that point, but if I had one and I heard that, my mind would have been blown. Really amazing track that does that in a game intro. Like when you boot the game, that's what plays back. And here's Turbo Outrun on the ARMSID. This is gonna be a tricky one for it.
1, 2, 3, hit it. Outrun.
All right, well, that actually sounds pretty darn good. I mean, obviously it's still playing too fast because of NTSC, but that digital playback, it's pretty kick-ass. It sounds really good. So I am super impressed with the ARMSID. It's not even warm to the touch after playing those tracks, and it sounds really, really good. This is by far the best SID replacement that I have ever used, and I haven't had a lot of experience. I only have the SwinSID and the ARMSID, but I think actually in my mail call boxes, I have a different SID replacement as well. So before anyone gets any ideas of sending different ones in, I have a few others to try, at least one other type besides this to try. So yeah, ARMSID, highly recommended by me, especially as more and more of these SID chips die. These are really good. Now, I don't know how much they cost. It might be kind of expensive, but to be honest, SID chips are really getting expensive as well, especially if you find working ones. I recently went back and tested all of my SIDs that I have put away in storage that were confirmed working. Like I had tested them, put a check mark on them, and 2 of them, I think out of the 5 I had stored, or maybe I had 4 stored away, the 2 that were just 6581s, the older type, not the ARs, were dead. They didn't work at all any longer. In fact, in the diagnostic cartridge, it even gave a SID error in there as well. But no sound, no paddle, just totally dead. So I feel that unfortunately, a lot of our SIDs are heading that direction, just like the PLA chips in the earlier 64s. They're just not gonna survive. So the fact that we have SID replacements like this, it's really exciting. It's a very cool piece of technology here. The irony is not lost on me that this ARMSID probably has more power than this entire 64, so you could emulate the whole thing, not just the SID, but it's still pretty cool where you can take a modern chip, interface it to a 5-volt bus, and produce sound that works. So thanks very much, George, for sending in the ARMSID. I really appreciate it, and yeah, for anyone who's looking for a modern replacement for their SID and they don't want to fork out for a sketchy unknown condition SID for their bread bin, it's a good solution right here. Well, that's going to be it for taking a look at this ARMSID. Thanks, George, for sending this in. It was very interesting to take a look at this, and like I said, I'm very impressed with this thing. I'll have to go back and do further testing where I run the configuration utility for it, check for firmware updates, but also maybe I can change the mode to be in a mode that I will like better. But I was really impressed with how there were no weird notes and the sounds all sounded pretty good with this thing. So like I said, very, very impressed. So if you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. I'd love to hear your comments down below about the way this thing sounded. Don't forget you can jump back and like skip back and forth and compare the tracks I was playing, whether it was the real SID or out of this, because that really gives you a good like A/B comparison. I know I didn't put that in the video specifically where I edited them directly next to each other, but just use that slider in YouTube to do that yourself. And I guess I want to thank all my patrons who have been supporting me while YouTube is in the dumps. I really appreciate it. Their names are scrolling up one of the 2 sides of the screen. I always forget which one it is. I think it's this side. But you know, now that I'm probably pointing to the wrong side, but no, I think it is this side. If you want to see your name up there, then you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. There's a Patreon link there, and you can become a supporter of the channel. Check out my second channel, speaking of channels, where I post other kind of randomy videos. So if you haven't seen that already, I'd appreciate you take a look and hit that subscribe button over there, because extra subs over there really help YouTube promote that channel. It's definitely on the smaller side of this one, although maybe it's smaller because people don't like it as much. I don't know. It's still me though, just me with less editing. Anyhow, that is gonna be it. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.